The road ahead of us is dangerous, with ominous signs of trouble ahead. As nations prepare for an apocalyptic confrontation, what can be done, and how should you prepare?
Shalom and welcome to Jewish Voice. I'm Jonathan Bernis, and thank you for joining us today. Well, the Middle East continues to boil in political uncertainty and civil unrest. Last week, we took a very close look at Bible prophecy in Syria, and today we'll examine the prophecies concerning Iran that are found in Ezekiel 38 and Jeremiah 49. Have those prophecies started to unfold? That's the question. Well, our guest today is going to answer these questions. He has thoroughly studied end-time prophecy and wrote a unique and timely book called Revelation Road, Hope Beyond the Horizon. He's back this week to share more with us, so please welcome back to Jewish Voice our friend Bill Salus. Hey, Bill, welcome back.
Jonathan, thanks. It's good
Great
to be back here again.
I'm so glad that you agreed to come back on the program, because the whole idea, Bill, that what's happening today in the Middle East, what's happening today in the world, was foretold by the prophets hundreds of years ago, in some cases as far back as 3,000 years ago. That's compelling to me.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, you know, when Muammar Gaddafi took a bullet to the head in November of 2011 at the pinnacle of the Arab Spring, Piers Morgan of CNN interviewed retired newscaster Dan Rather and said, now that Gaddafi's out, there'll be a new regime. What do you expect for the future? And Dan Rather's comment was, he who lives by the crystal ball walks on a lot of broken glass. But Christians don't live by a crystal ball. They live by the Bible. And inside of the Bible, about a third of it is devoted toward Bible prophecy. And we are given an abundance of information about what is going on in the Middle East right now, and especially when it comes to Israel and Iran. And you mentioned two very key prophecies when you opened up the show, Ezekiel 38 and Jeremiah 49.
You believe end-time prophecy, understanding end-time prophecy is key for believers. Why?
Well, I do for many reasons. One, you want to prepare your lives for the days that are forthcoming. You don't want to be caught in a gas war where you can't get gas or you can't get your ATMs to work because Iran maybe shoots off an electromagnetic pulse over our country. Bible prophecy is a witnessing tool, because when these prophecies start to happen and lives are affected, when the pages of prophecy find real-life application, there's a harvest field that's going to develop. And God has given us a silver platter of prophetic morsels to take out to that harvest field and say, look, our God told us about these events. Our God loves you. Our God sent Jesus to die for your sins. And it opens up the whole door for another level of conversation and communication.
I agree. And many people that I talk to just consider this all these things a mystery. I really can't understand that. It's prophecy. It's beyond me. But God does want us to understand that these things were written in advance, and we shouldn't be taken unaware.
No, Isaiah 46 tells us, verses 9 and 10, that I am God, there is none other, declaring the end from the beginning and things that are not yet done. See, God authenticates his sovereignty through Bible prophecy, but also importantly, he gives us information that he feels is important for us to possess because he loves us and cares for us and wants to prepare for those. And our natural response should be to worship him for caring. That's how I was led to the Lord, through Bible prophecy. Revelation 19:10 says, worship God. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. It's an integral part of the Bible.
Imagine this, knowing what's going to happen before it happens in detail. And Bill makes it so very easy. When we come back, we're going to talk about Iran. All eyes are on Iran. The Bible has much to say about it. So don't go away. I'm with Bill Salus, and we have a lot more to learn from him. Stay with us.
The road ahead is dangerous. Hatred is on the rise, and the truth is obscured by blind ideology. As nations prepare for an ultimate battle, what can we do? How should you prepare? In his stunning book, Revelation Road, Hope Beyond the Horizon, Bill Salus takes you on an unforgettable journey of biblical proportions. Through this unique blend of fiction novel and nonfiction research, you'll discover which nations will soon attack Israel, how Israel will fiercely defend itself, why there will be more terrorist attacks in America, and how the Arab world will face ultimate destruction. Troubling events are quickly developing, but even with an Arab-Israeli apocalypse on the horizon, there is a silver lining of hope inside this growing cloud of global doom. As our way of saying thank you for your gift of $40 or more, we want to send you a copy of Bill Salus's riveting book, Revelation Road. Your gift will ensure that urgently needed medical care will reach hurting Jewish people in some of the most remote places on earth, and that they will hear the truth of Yeshua, the Messiah. Call now, and we'll include a copy of the DVD, Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline? Jonathan Bernis and a unique group of experts tackle the tough questions surrounding our troubling times. In it, they reveal which events are fulfilling last days prophecy and which nation will likely produce the Antichrist. With these resources, you'll gain the clarity needed to navigate the road ahead. Call or click right now with your gift of $40 or more to receive your copies of Revelation Road and Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline. Your generosity will ensure that urgently needed medical care and the truth of Yeshua will free these Jewish people imprisoned by sickness and bring them life-changing hope. Don't wait. Call or click now.
Welcome back to Jewish Voice. I'm Jonathan Bernis, and with me today is the author of this new book, Revelation Road, Hope Beyond the Horizon. Bill, what I love so much about the book is that you have done something incredible. You've done a great deal of research, but you've made it very readable by writing it as fiction.
Well, my goal was to richly bless the reader with revelation for the rough road ahead, and hence the name Revelation Road. And it's much more than a Bible commentary on the book of Revelation. It outlines a chronology of prophetic events that I believe are about to happen soon and sequentially, and it immerses the reader into the pages of Bible prophecy. I wanted to paint as the end-time scenario into a story. And so we have some grandparents who have their grandson Tyler. They're concerned he's been birthed into the final generation. They're trying to prepare the lad for the apocalyptic events that are forthcoming. And all of a sudden they start to happen. All Tyler wanted to do was live a normal life like his father. But an apocalyptic Middle East and terrorism in America changed his life
None
forever.
of us are going to live a normal life anymore. We're living in very abnormal times.
That's my concern. And then the biblical commentary, there's 312 pages of commentary and 120 pages of novel, supports what I said in the novel from a biblical perspective, adding veracity to the text.
Yeah, beautiful and needed to be done. You believe that we are the terminal generation. Tell us why.
Israel, the super sign, 1948, the rebirth of the nation, the elephant in the room, 64 years ago, that was our sign. That was the fig tree Jesus spoke about in Matthew 24. And he said that the generation that saw the fig tree, and he went on to say, all these things will not pass. He told us it would be a final generation that will not pass. And he enumerated on numerous things. Israel was one of them. That was the super sign he drew to our attention. But he also mentioned many other things, nation coming against nation. When some generation can say all these things are in the history books, the abomination of desolation by Daniel the prophet, he also spoke about that. When they can say that's in the history books, that's the final generation. That's the tribulation generation. My concern is it our generation? Is it our children's or our grandchildren's generation? I believe it's near. And that's my concern, and that's the call I'm heeding to.
I do too, and I'm so glad you're on the program proclaiming that, because this is important for every one of us watching. You may think, well, I'm safe because I'm a believer and everything will work itself out, but we're not to be ignorant of these mysteries they're not to be mysteries to us. I have bookshelves filled with books on the end times, and they all talk about Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38. What's your take on all that?
Well, that's a very important prophecy, and due to the relationships that Russia is building with the members of that Gog of Magog invasion, most people understand that Gog of Magog really is a Russian-led coalition. There's 9 populations discussed by their ancient names, Tagarma, Persia, etc., Ethiopia.
That's not your view, though, is it?
Well, I believe
you have a different scenario.
I believe we need to be watching for it. I believe it's near. I don't believe it's imminent. I don't believe it's next, because the the Israel that Russia comes to invade, described in Ezekiel 38, verses 8 through 13, is dwelling securely in the midst of the land in the latter days without walls, bars, nor gates, in receipt of great plunder and great spoil. Now, some of those are true. Israel is dwelling in the land, and it's in the latter days, but they're not dwelling securely. And the reason they're not dwelling securely is because there's these populations that were listed in Psalm 83 that Ezekiel did not list in Ezekiel 38 that don't enable Israel to dwell securely.
Now unpack that, because this is what is imminent. That's my next question. What is imminent? What's next?
I believe it's Psalm 83, where you have the Hezbollah, you have Syrians, you have Palestinians, Hamas, Jordanians, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, Lebanon. They're involved in this confederacy of their own accord for different reasons. They're coming against Israel. They want to destroy the Jewish state. They form crafty counsel, we're told, because they want to possess the pastures of God for themselves, we're told in Psalm 83, verse 12. If this prophecy has not found final fulfillment, and I've searched high and low and tell you from my vantage point it is pending and it's imminent, that would mean that they want one more Arab state over there. They don't want a two-state solution. They don't want peace with the Jews. They want peace without the Jews. They want another state called Palestine. And this whole talk about receding back to the pre-1967 borders is a tactic so they can have a better vantage point to wipe Israel off the map. Remember, the Palestinians... It just
becomes a staging ground, right, for the annihilation of Israel.
Yeah, Hamas doesn't even recognize Israel's right to exist. The Palestinian school textbooks don't even have maps of Israel in them. They just have this big map of an area called Palestine. Most of the members in the Arab League don't even recognize Israel's right to exist. So here we are trying to craft land for peace deals. American presidents dating back from George H. Bush on through Clinton, through George W. Bush to Barack Obama, are trying to give away God's land to create peace with the Arabs. The very thing we're told in Joel 3:2 that God judges the nations for in the very end times is they've divided up my land. And who is the number one country in the world, apart from the Arab states that don't want Israel to exist, that's been involved and at the forefront of dividing God's land? It's America.
Sadly. Mm-hmm. And I think there's clear grounds that we have been judged as a result of that.
I think we're receiving the remedial judgments going back from September 11th as we turn into this century. You had September 11th. We've had the wars. We've been involved in 3 Middle East wars. You've had Category 5 hurricanes in 2005, Hurricane Katrina, the most costly disaster in our nation's history. You had the BP oil spill. You've had the mortgage implosion. You've had the global financial crunch. You've had tornado seasons. I mean,
it's a pretty long list.
You want me to keep going?
And they're all connected. You can connect them directly to efforts to try to force Israel to give up land. Let me switch a little bit, just go a little bit northwest, talk about Iran, because Iran is in the forefront of world attention now. It's likely they're nearing the completion of a nuclear weapon that's been pledged, they'll use against Israel. Focus on Iran.
It's a very, very real threat, one that the Bible, I think, has spoken about and foretold about. You know, we spoke about Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel wrote at the same time the prophet Jeremiah wrote, approximately 2,600 years ago. And Ezekiel listed Iran as Persia. It was changed its name from Persia to Iran in 1935. But modern-day Iran on a map, when these guys wrote, was much more than just modern-day ancient Persia. It also involved an area called Elam. Jeremiah wrote about Elam, but Ezekiel wrote about Persia. Ezekiel seems to have purposely omitted Elam because he mentions in Ezekiel 32 Elam. He knows about Elam, but because Elam apparently isn't involved in Ezekiel 38, he omits it, much like he omitted all the Psalm 83 inner circle of nations. Why does he do that? Well, Jeremiah gives us a very interesting end times prophecy. It tells us it's an end times prophecy because it concludes by saying, in the latter years, I will restore the captives of Elam. So we know it's an end times prophecy. And what happens in this prophecy, which I have searched high and low and do not believe it's found fulfillment yet, is that Iran fiercely angers the Lord. And because they fiercely anger the Lord, certain judgments come upon them. Now, let's just think about this for a second geopolitically. God has end times plans for Israel. He's gone to great lengths to bring them out of the nations of the world, out of a Holocaust environment, into the land of Israel. God's fingerprints are conspicuously all over the restoration of the nation of Israel.
Incredible.
Yeah. So he's got end times plans for him. We're told in Ezekiel 38 and 39, Ezekiel 39 verse 7, I will uphold my holy name in the midst of my people Israel, and the nations shall know I am the Lord. He chooses that occasion with the Jews existing in the land, restored back into the land, to defeat this Gog of Magog invasion and uphold his holy name to the nations of the world. So that we know that God has end times plans for Israel. Now here comes Iran coming along, about to have a nuclear weapon, saying they want to wipe Israel off the map. Now, do you think that would fiercely anger the Lord?
I do.
Okay, so he's fiercely angered.
How many of you think so too? Yeah, the whole audience agrees.
Something has fiercely angered the Lord. And then he says, because I'm fiercely angered, and I'm going to go back to the preceding passages, he will break the bow of Elam, and he strike them at the foremost of their might, and then call from the four winds of heaven the winds, and it shall scatter the Elamites to the nations, and there'll be no nation where they don't go. You have a dispersion. Okay, well, let's look at the potential of what we could be looking at here. If Elam is an area where the Bushehr nuclear plant is, it's by the Persian Gulf, and it's on the western side of Iran today.
If the Bible is that specific.
Yeah, Elam is where the Bushehr nuclear plant is. That Bushehr nuclear plant is loaded with Russian fuel rods. Former UN Ambassador John Bolton said at the time, in the summer of 2011, when they were loaded in, that Israel's window to strike that particular facility was closed because it would create a nuclear disaster. Okay, well, it is the closest line of target for Israel to strike Iran's nuclear sites. You go right through the northern strip of Saudi Arabia and you hit that site. Saudi Arabia is not interested in Iran to have a nuclear program. They have given Israel permission to have that thin strip of air to go and make that attack. That's common knowledge. If they strike the Bushehr nuclear plant, you could have this scenario happen. They get hit at Iran's foremost of its might. That would be its nuclear program, potentially.
Israel really has no option if the world does nothing, and they really haven't.
Well, not if they want to survive as a nation. Of course, Yad Vashem, never again. They don't want another genocidal attack coming their way, right? So
Israel strikes.
Israel strikes, and it could create a nuclear disaster. This is not something you're hearing on the news. What you're hearing on the news is it's no longer what if Israel strikes, but when is Israel going to strike? Right. But if they strike the Bushehr nuclear plant that is red hot, you could have a nuclear disaster. It happens to be in Elam. And what happens? That would create a dispersion. So we might have Jeremiah even predicting that much detail into what we're seeing that may happen on the news, and this may happen tomorrow, Jonathan. It's new information that not a lot of prophecy experts have been teaching. So what we do is we posit it out there. We get it out there and have people thinking about it, because it looks like Jeremiah predicted another end times prophecy for Iran, a double jeopardy for Iran.
Yeah, explain that more clearly, the double jeopardy. That's what's implied clearly.
Exactly, because like you said, you have shelves filled with the teaching on the Gog of Magog. This is 52 passages in Ezekiel 38 and 39 with enormous description about a Russian-led invasion that comes against Israel for spoil and plunder and great booty. So most everybody's paying attention to that. There's a great detail. I mean, it's hard to ignore that that's a prophecy and that's about to happen. But they've not caught this other part of prophecy regarding with modern-day Iran. So we may have this dual prophecy of Iran. Iran's army presently is ranked number 12 among all world armies. Israel's ranked number 10. Okay, if we have two competing prophecies going here, and competing is probably not the best word, but dual prophecies, a double jeopardy for Iran. If Israel strikes Iran's nuclear sites and it affects Iran adversely, maybe even nuclear fallout, Iran may slip down from being world ranked number 12. By the time it enters into the Gog of Magog invasion, it could be a second-class army. We don't know. But I mean, these are all the potential implications of understanding Iran's double jeopardy, because everyone has just simply been focused on Persia, who study these things and travels in these circles in Ezekiel 38, verse 5. They have not looked at the prophecies of Elam. Recently, guys like Bill Koenig, who I know you've had on your program, and Joe Rosenberg, who writes quite a bit on Ezekiel 38, type material, have now started to be talking about this Jeremiah 49 verses 34 through 39, the prophecies of Elam. Very, very relevant information.
Very relevant. So the imminent is the threat against Israel by the surrounding enemies of Israel, Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, Iran, having to deal with Iran, but then a second issue, which is this Gog-Magog battle. You don't see these simultaneously, but sequentially.
I don't. Some people Exactly. I see an inner circle of Israel's enemies that share common borders. I call them, that's in Psalm 83, I call them an inner circle. There's an outer ring of nations that are spread across the boards in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So I see two different invasions. I would say this, Jonathan. Some people believe that they are one and the same war, and they'll say that, according to Ezekiel 38, verse 6, that there are many peoples with thee, hordes of people with thee, Gog. But the problem I have with that is that the populations of Ezekiel, of Psalm 83, are not listed by Ezekiel in that coalition that he talks about, although he mentions them 89 times elsewhere in all of his other prophetic chapters. Edom, Edomites, Moab, Moabites, etc., but he doesn't list them in Ezekiel 38, but he's very specific about the 9 populations, Togarmah, Tubal, Persia, that he does list. Why doesn't he list them? It seems very specific. It's probably because they're not involved. Just like he doesn't list Elam in there. Why doesn't he? Elam existed at the time that he wrote. Jeremiah wrote about it. Why doesn't he? Because it's probably not involved.
It's a complex scenario, but you make it so easy. I want to talk about your subtitle. Revelation Road points out that there's hope beyond the horizon. I want you to elaborate on the meaning of that.
He loves us so much, he wants us to know what's coming our way, and our natural response should be to worship him for caring. That's the essence of prophecy. And so what I do present in the book throughout numerous parts is the gospel of Jesus Christ and his imminent return. And I even have an appendix in the book about how someone can get saved. It's a witnessing tool. This book is more than just a great read. It's a witnessing tool, because we have family members around us today that don't believe in Jesus, and friends and associates that need information. They need to understand and find bearing on what's going on in the world. And we can say, look, the Bible talked about these days, and here's what it said. And you put this book in front of them and this kind of information in front of them, and it gets their attention, because as these things start to lay out, as they're starting to pay extra dollars at the gas pump and hearing about the news, and probably even hearing about the nuclear strike that goes on in the Middle East, that's going to get their attention. They're going to wonder what's going on, and you can say, look, the Bible talked about that.
Nothing takes God by surprise. He's still on the throne. He wants you to know that everything is going to work out, but exactly what's ahead is something that's available to us, not through the news, but through the Word of God. Revelation Road, hope beyond the horizon. It's clear, it's concise, it's simple, and it's very, very thorough. Bill, thank you so much
Jonathan,
for writing
thank
this.
you.
Thanks for being on the program. Bill Salus, everyone. There is much more ahead, so don't go away.
As our way of saying thank you for your gift of $40 or more, we want to send you a copy of Bill Salus's riveting book, Revelation Road. Your gift will ensure that urgently needed medical care will reach hurting Jewish people in some of the most remote places on earth, and that they will hear the truth of Yeshua, the Messiah. Call now, and we'll include a copy of the DVD, Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline? Jonathan Bernis and a unique group of experts tackle the tough questions surrounding our troubling times. In it, they reveal which events are fulfilling last days prophecy and which nation will likely produce the Antichrist. With these resources, you'll gain the clarity needed to navigate the road ahead. Call or click right now with your gift of $40 or more to receive your copies of Revelation Road and Where Are We on God's Prophetic Timeline. Your generosity will ensure that urgently needed medical care and the truth of Yeshua will free these Jewish people imprisoned by sickness and bring them life-changing hope. Don't wait. Call or click now.
Thanks to you, last year brought marvelous opportunities for our medical outreaches, and as God has blessed each one, new records were set. Your prayers and faithful financial support ensured that nearly 30,000 people received relief through free medical treatment, eye care, and dental care. Most important, more than 4,300 people now call Yeshua, Jesus, their Messiah and Lord. The mission and mandate of Jewish Voice has never been clearer, and the need has never been greater. All around the world, people are hurting, hoping, and waiting. Relentless poverty, sickness, prejudice, and ignorance take their toll. That's why our dedicated volunteer medical team of doctors, nurses, dentists, technicians, and ministry counselors sacrificially give their finances, time, and effort in order to bring relief to stricken Jewish people in some of the world's most remote locations. Together, we are making a difference, but there remains much more work to do. This year is proving to be a year of unprecedented opportunity and even greater need. With your help, we'll bring more medical aid and the light of the gospel of Yeshua to more people than ever before.
Jewish Voice is passionately focused on proclaiming Yeshua, Jesus as Messiah, to the Jew first and to the nations. The need is great, which is why we're determined to carry out our mandated mission to go anywhere in the world where God's chosen people, the Jewish people, need our help. Recently, our medical outreach team visited Addis Ababa and Waliso, Ethiopia, and the results were nothing short of phenomenal. More than 16,000 people, many of them Jewish, received free medical care, eye care, dental care, and more importantly, over 5,100 people received Yeshua, Jesus as their Messiah. Indeed, 2012 is proving to be a year of great opportunity. In fact, in May, we'll be conducting our very first medical outreach to the impoverished Lemba Jewish community in Zimbabwe. This is a tribe of more than 20,000 Jewish people that live in abject poverty. I'm talking about people that have never seen a doctor or a dentist. And it's friends like you who help to make it possible for us to help needy Jewish communities like the Lemba. And so I want to personally thank you for your continued prayer and financial support. Before we go, I want to take a moment to invite you to join us online. Besides our website, jewishvoice.org, you'll also find us at facebook.com/Jewish Voice. Facebook is a great way to get real-time updates on everything happening here at Jewish Voice, and you'll have the opportunity to see what our many friends are talking about. We'd love to have you visit, so stop by and like us soon. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to ask you to join us again next week. But as we go, I want to remind you that the Bible says to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and promises they shall prosper that love thee. For all of us at Jewish Voice, this is Jonathan Bernis saying shalom and God bless you.
Come to where heaven and earth meet. Join Jonathan Bernis in the Holy Land, November 30th through December 11th for the Jewish Voice 2012 Israel Tour. Experience a land of rich history, walk where Yeshua walked, and explore the very backdrop of the Holy Bible. You'll visit Tel Aviv, Jaffa, Caesarea, Nazareth, the Sea of Galilee, the Mount of Beatitudes, and more. Call or click now for more information.
I hope that you'll join me this year in Jerusalem. See you there.
Jewish Voice is made possible by the support of friends and partners like you.